Today we're discussing the slope of a line. And I want to define slope for you in a few different ways and then give you the equation for finding slope. So the slope of a line is found by comparing 2 points on the line, any 2 points, and looking at the rise between the 2 points over the run between the 2 points. That is the vertical change, or the change in y, over the horizontal change, or the change in x. So what we can do if we have 2 points, we'll call them x1, y1, and x2, y2, is we take the difference of the y values, y2 minus y1, over the difference in the x values, x2 minus x1. Now, it's not really important which point goes first, but what is important is that the first y and the first x come from the same point. I don't want to mix those up. And the second y and the second x also come from the same point. It's also important that we are subtracting the two. And so we have to be real careful how our signs line up when we're finding the slope. So suppose we're given 2 points, whether the coordinates themselves or the points on the graph. Let's try, for example, 2, 6 and negative 4, 2, and we're asked to find the slope. So we're going to plug those into our equation, and we're going to choose one of the y values. Now, I'm going to do both directions so you see that it doesn't matter which is which as long as we keep the order correct. So if we let this one be first, then we've got 2 first on top and negative 4 first on bottom. Remember, it's always y over x. So we got 2 first on top, which means that 6 comes second on top. So we're doing 2 minus 6. And on the bottom, we're doing negative 4 minus this 2 over here. And then all we have to do is simplify that. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. And negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. And what does that simplify to? Positive 2/3. That is our slope. Now, let's try it with the points in the other direction. So let's use the 6 first on top, which means that on the bottom we're using the 2 first. So the second y value would be the 2, and the second x value would be the negative 4. So notice that since I'm always subtracting, I'm doing 2 minus negative 4. So I've got to be real careful how my signs go. So on top I have 4, and on bottom I have 6, which also reduces to 2/3. So either way, I have a slope of 2/3. So again, it doesn't matter which order as long as the first y and the first x both come from the same point. Now, slope isn't necessarily always positive. A slope is positive when the line is increasing from left to right, like so. Okay? It can be really steep or it can be really shallow. But if there's any increase at all from left to right, then it has a positive slope. Like I said, slope isn't always positive. Sometimes it's a negative. So suppose we have the 2 points, 3, 5, and 6, negative 1. Let's calculate the slope. So let's use the negative 1 for our y first, which means that 6 is going to be our first x. So on top, we're doing negative 1 minus 5 from the first point, and 6 minus the 3. So again, notice that the negative 1 and the 6 come from the same point. The 5 and the 3 come from the same point. Now it's just a matter of simplifying. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. And negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. So our slope is negative. And so we have a negative slope whenever our line is decreasing from left to right. It can be really steep, it can be really shallow, it can be somewhere in the middle. But those are all negative sloped lines. There's 2 more types of lines we can have. Let's look at the points negative 2, 4 and 4, 4. Now notice that these two have the same y value. That's going to come into play here, because in our numerator, when we start with 4, and we'll say that we'll start with the point 4, 4. So that means we've got this 4 first on top, this 4 first on bottom, then we're subtracting this 4 here, and this -2. So on top we get 0, and on bottom we get 6, and 0 divided by 6 is 0. So this line had a 0 rise for every 6 run, or really for any run. So what kind of line doesn't rise at all? A horizontal line. And so a horizontal line has a 0 slope. But that's still not the last type. There's one more type. So we've covered lines that rise, we've covered lines that fall, and we've covered horizontal lines. There's only one type left. Now, if you can guess what it is, that's great. If not, let's look at these points right here. So when we go to calculate our slope, we'll start with the 5 and the 3, which means that our second ones will be the 1 and the 3. So on top we get 4, and on bottom we get 0. And what's 4 divided by 0? Well, that is undefined. Now, if you think about it, we've got a 4 rise and 0 run. What kind of line doesn't run, doesn't have any change side to side? A vertical line. So vertical lines have an undefined or no slope. So there's a difference between no slope and 0 slope. Horizontal lines have 0 slope. Vertical lines have no slope, or an undefined slope. So those are our 4 types of lines. We have the positive slope, that's increasing from left to right, negative slope, which decreases from left to right or falls. We have the horizontal line, which has a 0 slope, and the vertical line, which has an undefined slope. So I'm going to give you 2 sets of points, and I'd like you to find the slope for those sets of points. The first set is 5, 2, and 5, -2. And the second set is 0, 6, and 5, -4. So take a second, pause the video, find the slopes for those 2 pairs, and then unpause the video and see how you did. Okay, so on the left, it doesn't matter which you choose to go first. You could have either done the -2 first, with the 5 first, and then subtracted 2 and 5, or you could have done the 2 first, subtracted -2, and had 5 minus 5 on the bottom. On top you'll have -4 over 0. On bottom you'll have +4 over 0. Either way, it is a undefined slope, which tells us we have what type of line? Vertical line. On the right, let's start with the point on the left. Do 6 minus -4 over 0 minus 5. On top we have +10. On bottom we have -5, which gives us a slope of -2. So this is a -2 slope, so this line slants down. It falls or drops from left to right. So that's how we find slope. We'll do some more problems relating to slope and how it compares to rate of change in the next lesson. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can go back and watch the video again if you want something clarified, or you can begin on your homework.